20 minutes to 10 on this Thursday morning. And let's continue now with our conversation about drug addiction in the time of COVID-19. And we're also shifting our focus to sniffer dogs. And these dogs normally used to search for drugs. But now some dog trainers in the UK and Chile are considering training these dogs to detect COVID-19. That's one part of our discussion. But this morning we're chatting to John Greyvenstein from the Braveheart Bio Dog Academy about the various uses of sniffer dogs and dogs in addiction therapy as well. John, a very good morning and thanks so much for your time. And we will get to the part about what's being done around the world to train dogs to sniff out coronavirus. But we've been talking to recovering drug addicts this morning. We've been talking to those who run rehabilitation centres. I've been reading lots of interesting information about how animals, in particular dogs, can be used in addiction therapy, helping those come through this kind of addiction. And I'd like your insight, especially with somebody who deals with dogs and sniffer dogs, and when it comes to sniffing out drugs at places like airports, how can they be used for both purposes, specifically drug addiction therapy?
Yeah, dogs play an important role. If we take the whole circle from where the dog plays a role with the interaction with the human, the person that's involved with drugs, the therapy, research all over the world has indicated to us the health advantages of dogs being with people, and specifically when you've got people in a state like we've got currently in a lockdown state, where the dogs the dog-human interaction, the dog becomes part of the system of the family or of the person, and you've got a channeling of emotions. So the dog plays an immense role there, and there's a lot of good research all over the world that will come in and show us all the benefits of having a dog as a partner in times like this.
Does a dog have to be specifically trained to perform that role when it comes to, I mean, we know when it comes to guide dogs, we know what kind of training they receive. When it comes to helping someone through a process like this, through drug addiction, to maybe even a dog being trained or being used to sort of sniff out drugs on that person to see whether they have it again, whether they're using it again, is it possible, or is that a bit of a far reach?
No. The dog, the person, when you come to the dog and the interaction with the person, just being a friend, just coming into the system. Of course, you've got the advantages, a lot of advantages when you have your dog trained and also the person trained in a way. What's very interestingly is that we've had super results where people from rehab centers interact with the dogs, our dogs, and the dogs listen to them. They get this feeling, listen, there's something happening here, and the dog is listening to me, and suddenly this relationship builds. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the dogs to identify the narcotics, that is very important, because yeah, the dog can play a major role with the people that use the dogs, of course, to go out. Yeah, we've got to look at scientific training of the dogs to identify the specific target substances. And what better can you get? No more accurate field detector currently in the world than a dog correctly trained and the handler correctly trained. So there you've got the advantage as well for the handler working in circumstances like this, achieving success.
All right, well, I want to change tack because I have you here, and this has been a story that many people have been talking about, is all the efforts happening around the world, specifically in countries like Chile. We know that also it's being done in countries like France and Germany as well, where dogs are being trained to sniff out coronavirus or COVID-19. Your expert opinion, is that possible?
Yes, most definitely it's possible. I think some of the research that we've seen all over the world is very good research. The big thing is to identify the target odor. You know, from our side, Braveheart side, we work in a laboratory, our own laboratory. We chemically have to purify the target odor. One will have to be just careful. The one big thing is not to work with the virus itself per se in this process. That's something that's a bit worrying. I think research has shown all over the world that we do not have a problem with the virus going from the human to the dog and vice versa. But the moment we've got this down and pinned it down scientifically, it will be, the dog is the most accurate field detector still, and it will most definitely, it could be successful.
What type of dog would you use for something like this? Would it be the same type of dog that you would use to sniff out narcotics, for example, at an airport, or are there specific dogs that can perform specific functions, especially for detection of this nature?
Yeah, we're going to define the dog firstly in terms of the behavior. The dog that you are going to use here must be the dog that's got this relationship with humans per se, not that working dog, because the one thing, the one area that you could use the dog, for instance, is going to be amongst people. And therefore we evaluate, you evaluate the dog, and we must remember when you take this scientifically, you get differences between breeds, but you also get differences within breeds. So we're going to utilize the behavior of the dog linked to working with socialized with humans, and that are we going to then use, because we're going to be able to use the dogs in this scenario where we identify firstly the target substance amongst people. That's going to be very important. Or you could also get the target substance, what we are working on here at Braveheart Bio Dog Academy, where we can then keep the substance separate and have a dog then go out and identify the different substances.
And I suppose many people who are listening at the moment, John, might wonder, where's the room for error? You know, is there room for error where a dog might confuse corona with something else? Because, you know, as we know, this virus is mutating all the time. We're learning new things almost daily about it. So, you know, and how would you continue to train a dog to keep up with where this virus is going?
Yeah, we will have to more specifically identify the target odor specific to the SARS-CoV-2 virus in the human. I'm a bit worried about that we're still working on a bouquet of aromatic odors in this sense, where in the lab we will have to identify the specific target odor. Once we've got that, and we train the dog, the accuracy is going to be 90% plus. Provided we've got the correct training and the management and the training of the handler is very important in this part, as well as the dog. So they're going to form a team, and this team can go out and identify. And this is what we are doing currently with the narcotics. On your second question that you asked in the interview was pertaining to the use of the dogs to identify narcotics. That is very important. And that's what we are working with on at the moment, to purify and get the dog to be as accurate as possible. Yeah. Remember, we cannot work in the old ways anymore. We're working, the science has progressed, and we've got to keep abreast with that, also in the training of our dogs and our handlers.
Fantastic. Well, that's certainly very fascinating. Thank you so much, John Greyvenstein there. Just sniffer dogs used for so much more than just to pet and roll over and tickle. And I wonder, Nandi Shabalala, what does COVID-19 smell like?
I wonder. That's going to be very interesting to find out.
Yeah. Well, more interesting.
Only the dogs will know.
Maybe the dogs will, yeah. Only the dogs will know. Well.